President Buhari back in Abuja after attending Senegalese president's second-term inauguration.
Senate considers April 16th for passage of 2019 appropriation bill.
Federal High Court dismisses suit to restrain INEC from collating results of Rivers governorship elections.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we engage more guests on managing electoral victory, part 3.
All right, now we are almost at the end of the 2019 general elections with the ongoing collation of the results of the Rivers State governorship elections, which were previously suspended by the Independent National Electoral Commission.
Of course, Kingsley, the electoral season has taken its toll, of course, on almost everybody, especially the declaration of inconclusive elections, or is it supplementary elections, in some states, and of course, the conduct of those elections by INEC, and the declaration of the results.
All right, that's right, Clay. I'm sure many Nigerians like me who are looking forward to the end of the whole electoral process altogether, and as it were, an end to the court cases so the business of governance can begin in earnest for those who won elections.
Indeed, Kingsley, and we recall that, of course, this topic today that we're doing, that's managing electoral victory, was inspired by the need to see how the winners and losers, of course, in the 2019 general elections can, work together or forge what has been termed inclusive government. Of course, that's what some of our guests in the first part and second part did, prefer.
Oh, that's true, Claire, there's no doubt about that, because after electoral victory comes the hard work. And of course, you have to get the right personnel, and what kind of personnel would you need to work with? You have to heal the wounds that have been inflicted by the sometimes acrimonious electoral process. And several notable members of the Nigerian political class have been on the first and second parts of our Good Morning series, which is on managing electoral victory. And they've all shared their personal experiences on how to achieve harmonious coexistence with the opposition after the outcome of the elections.
All right, so going deeper into the series, we need to ask, or still a lot of questions that we should ask, and one of them is how best should the candidates that have, won elections manage their electoral victory. Now, what should be the responsibility of, the electoral victory? What responsibility should it confer on political parties, politicians, and even their supporters?
All right, we should also ask, very importantly, what next after electoral victory? And what is the implication of electoral victory for the candidates, as Claire said, also their supporters? And what lessons, if any, has the political class learned so far therein and after the polls? And how prepared are the new helmsmen or those who have been returned to office to face the business of governance?
Kingsley, a number of our guests did, bring up several issues that, need to be managed from the, institutions, of course, to the key players themselves, what needs to be done in terms of managing electoral victory. It's not just a single or one individual's role or responsibility.
Absolutely. It's not a linear process either. I mean, you have a constellation of stakeholders who will need to be managed in the context of electoral success.
Indeed. So, there will be answers to those questions, and as we always say, the answers may be blowing in the wind, but we'll go deeper into the third part of the series, Managing Electoral Victory, today on Good Morning Nigeria. I am Claire Adelabu Abdulrazak, and it's always our pleasure to have you join us live on the network service of Africa's largest TV network, that's the NTA, and of course we're broadcasting live from Abuja.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I join Clay and also welcoming you to today's edition of the program, in the course of which we shall have our regular complimentary segments, which by now you know. These include newspaper review, business, sports, and foreign. In the meantime, let's take the morning news with Chimobi Walter Nigeria. Hi, Chimobi.
Hello, Kingsley. I'm sure the weather has been treating you fairly these last few days.
No. I mean, as you can see, the temperatures in Abuja daytime, nothing less than 35, 37 degrees. And usually by 9 a.m. it's already sun up. And of course, right up to the evening hours, particularly when you have power outages, it's been a bit tough. And for you?
All right, I hope we sum out those challenges in no time. Good morning, Nigeria, and welcome to the morning news. We'll take you now to Senegal, where President Macky Sall of the Republic of Senegal has formally begun his second term of 5 years in office. Now, this followed his inauguration at a colorful ceremony held at the outskirts of the Senegalese capital, Dakar, witnessed by President Muhammadu Buhari and other world leaders. Now, progress is being made on the conclusion of the electoral process in Rivers State 3 weeks after the conduct of the polls. Our correspondent reports says the PDP is leading after collation of 15 of the available 17 local government area results.
For very obvious reasons, the place has been very peaceful. So for me, we congratulate the security, congratulate INEC so far. It's been peaceful.
Even though we had the option that we were leading, we were winning, but we have come here now to see what is happening, and it appears to be a departure from what we had in mind.
And a bit on the judiciary, the Federal High Court sitting in Abuja has dismissed a suit by the African Alliance Congress seeking to stop the Independent National Electoral Commission INEC from collating results of the governorship elections in Rivers State.
Our view remains that it will not be proper for INEC to continue to take any steps with a matter that is already in court.
There is no hurdles for INEC again, so INEC is free to announce the winner of that election.
The federal government has unveiled the voluntary offshore assets regularization scheme meant to encourage the voluntary declaration of offshore assets and tax due to Nigeria. Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami, unveiled the scheme in Abuja along with Minister of Finance, Zainab Ahmed.
Become an additional opportunity, a new mechanism for Nigerians to continue to fulfill their tax obligations by extending the scope to offshore assets and foreign-sourced income.
It is expected that those funds owned by Nigerians that are not in the system will be voluntarily declared by the owners.
A bit on the legislature, the Senate and House of Representatives Joint Committee on Poverty Alleviation has described the National Social Investment Program as an excellent and effective means of ending poverty in the country. Now, this was when members of the committee paid a visit to the office of the National Social Investment Program in Abuja. They advised states to take advantage of the availability of these programs to provide needed services for the people.
A lot of the work needs to be done at state, local government, and even community level. So this is what we're trying to do with the roadmap.
This is a program that we all participate in our various states. We know how the poor people, how the masses of the country are benefiting from it and getting happy.
And in other stories, an appeal has gone out to Nigerians to be good ambassadors of the country wherever they may find themselves around the world. Now, this is coming on the heels of reports of the execution of a Nigerian woman in Saudi Arabia and others charged with drug-related offenses and robbery in other countries.
We have about 12 that have been sentenced to various jail terms. Now, the issue with the drugs in Saudi is this. There are cases of syndicates who work with airlines to actually put these drugs in the bags of unsuspecting pilgrims. So we've had cases where truly they didn't commit the offense. So we appeal to Saudi to make the trials fair, open, and ensure that justice is done. Even if you are going to die, you know that you died for an offense you committed. So while we appeal to Nigerians, especially going to Saudi Arabia, it's tough.
obey the laws of the land. Even kola nut is treated as a drug.
Now, impressed by the resilience and ability of the Nigerian police force despite glaring inadequate funding, the Senate Committee on Police Affairs has described the Nigerian police force and its officers and men as miracle workers and unsung heroes of Nigeria's democracy. A statement from the force public relations officer, Frank Mba, said they made these remarks on Tuesday, 2nd April 2019, when the Inspector General of Police, Acting IGP Mohammed Adamu visited the Senate to defend the police budget. The senators promised to support the IGP and his team and expedite action on the passage of the police reform bill. The committee urged the IGP to continue with his ongoing strides towards repositioning the Nigeria police force, promising to do all within its powers to pass the police trust fund bill so as to create avenues for alternative sources of funding the police. The committee, in recognition of the IGP's leadership qualities, asked the police boss to take a bow and thereafter brought the sitting to an end. Meanwhile, the Air Task Force of Operation Lafia Dole has significantly degraded an Islamic State of West Africa province ISWAP terrorists hideout and neutralized some of its leaders and fighters at Magari in the fringes of Lake Chad in the northern part of Borno State. A statement by the Director of Public Relations and Information, Nigerian Air Force Air Commodore Ibikunle Daramola, says this was accomplished in an air interdiction mission conducted on the 1st of April 2019, following credible intelligence reports indicating that some senior ISWAP leaders arrived at the settlement on Friday, 30th March 2019, along with some of their fighters. Accordingly to Nigerian Air Force Alpha Jets, aircraft supported by an ISR platform were dispatched to attack the identified compounds within the settlement. The bombs from the two Alpha Jets recorded direct hits on the target compounds, resulting in the destruction of several structures which were seen engulfed in flames. Several of the terrorists were also neutralized in the process. And that's the news for now. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Kingsley and Claire after this break. Do stay with us.
All right, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. We're moving on out to business, and oil price rise above $69 per barrel, making it the highest in 2019 so far. And that's as sanctions against Iran and unrest in Venezuela looks likely to deepen OPEC supply cuts. Kunle Adeye will bring us details of this and more stories.
The price goes above $69 a barrel for the first time in 2019 on Tuesday, with a view that more sanctions against Iran and further Venezuelan disruptions could extend OPEC-led supply cut, and as the market became less worried that demand may reduce. Brent crude rose 10 cents to $69.11 per barrel, having touched $69.50, the highest since November. The United States is considering more sanctions against Iran, whose oil exports have been cut down by half. It is envisaged that further cuts from Iran and Venezuela can expand the production cuts mapped out to avoid price sapping. And away from oil prices, financial experts have lauded various efforts by the federal government to empower youths in the country, particularly through its social investment programs, and advocated the use of public-private partnership to complement government's efforts.
Teaching people how to leverage technology, trade into the financial market and make money.
And to equity markets, investors lose 169.01 billion naira at Tuesday's trading as market sentiment remains negative. The Nigeria Stock Exchange All-Share Index dipped by minus 0.99%. Next is a graphic representation of the closing figures. With business news, I'm Kunle Adeyeye.
All right, thank you very much, Kunle Adeyeye. You're there for the business package on Good Morning Nigeria. Newspaper review is next for us.
All right, we've got quite a number of papers, and the stories, of course, are all about politics and some studies on the economy. But let's welcome Bayo Atoyebi first of all. Bayo, welcome to another edition.
Thank you, Claire. Good morning. Good morning, Kinsley. Good morning, Nigeria.
Bayo, good to see you.
Thank you.
All right, let's begin. The papers have stories on politics. They have stories on execution of drug couriers in Saudi Arabia, and of course, the presidential accent that has been declined on a number of bills. Let's take a look at the Nigerian pilot. Nigerian pilot, from top to bottom, let's just take the stories. Desperate politicians are challenged in Rivers governorship polls. That's according to INEC, with the lead story saying Rivers election collation. Wike takes massive lead with 8 local governments to go. And PDP takes all 3 senatorial seats. Hails court verdict on result collation, and INEC to resume collation today. Also there, it says, that's below the nameplate of the Nigerian pilot. Buhari rejects bill to revive Ajaokuta Steel Company and others. That can be found on page 7. For the Daily Trust newspaper, there are other headlines, including this, says Buhari rejects Ajaokuta Steel Company bill, that's page 3. Saudi Arabia executes 8 Nigerians over drugs. And federal government seeks new revenue sources to fund 2019 budget. With the late story coming in with the Kika constituency projects, ICPC to prosecute politicians and contractors who divert funds. And below the photograph on the front page, you have 3 other headlines. Says JAMB releases results of 2019 mock UTME. Travelers kidnapped, 1 shot on Kaduna-Abuja road. Rivers, Wike leads in 12 local governments as coalition continues today. Claire.
Yes, quite interesting reads I have with me. The Punch, Daily Sun, and Leadership. But let's take the political stories first. On the front page of the Punch, Senate presidency, Ndume defies Buhari or Shomole, unfolds 9-point agenda. You can find the details of that on page 2. And if you turn to the Daily Sun's front page, another interesting read, Buhari accuses NAS of padding. And now the writer to that story says, lawmakers inflated debts federal government owes states, and cites Delta Taraba figures as example. And the other writer says senators keep mum. And again, looking at the leadership, leadership is leading with an economic story that's on the budget, but we'll take that later. Let's now bring in Bayo.
Well, where do you want me to start with?
Let's look at the political reports first.
Well, political report.
Yes.
Well, let's start
from
with
the presidency.
Let's start with the Senate. The Senate is to pass the 2019 budget on April 16th. That is in 13 days' time. Senate President Bukola Saraki gave indication yesterday, and he said that they will do the best to make sure that the budget is passed on that day. He enjoined all committees to submit their budget defense report to the Appropriation Committee latest by April 11th. They adjourned plenary till April 9th to ensure that work is carried on effectively on the budget. On the issue of politics in Rivers State, a federal high court, Abuja, has dismissed the suit by African Action Congress seeking to stop INEC from resuming collation of results, which it did yesterday. The court ruled that Justice Iyan Ekwo ruled that the court lacked jurisdiction. The court held that the subject matter, being a post-election case, was meant for the Election Petitions Tribunal. Meanwhile, collation commenced yesterday, and for governorship elections for 6 local government of Rivers State that have been outstanding. There will be supplementary election when necessary by April 13th, going by the INEC timetable. Thereafter, there will be announcement of results between 13th and 15th of April. By 19th of April, there will be issuance of certificate for those who won elections. They will get their certificates, and this will be done by the National Commissioner, assisted by a resident Electoral Commissioner. But yesterday, gunmen disrupted a peaceful protest by the African Action Congress in Port Harcourt. They were protesting against the collation of the governorship result that resumed yesterday. The government fired gunshots to disperse demonstrators along Biradi near Hotel Presidential. The Commissioner of Information, Rivers State, Emmanuel Oka, says the state government had temporarily banned street protests. The sad story that's coming, hitting Nigeria, is that a Nigerian woman has been executed in Saudi Arabia over drug-related offenses. The senior special assistant to the president on diaspora, Abike Dabiri, says this brings to 8 such Nigerians that have been executed in the last 3 years for that same drug offense. And she points out that Nigerians going to Saudi Arabia or other countries must endeavor to obey the laws of those countries and be good ambassadors. She lamented that there are 5 other Nigerians involved in armed robbery cases in Dubai, and they are a disgrace to Nigeria. He says government will continue to adopt a policy of name to shame. She gave the names of the 5 Nigerians who were involved in the alleged robbery incidents in Dubai. And she says that Nigerians are hardworking and intelligent persons, and a few ones cannot spoil the whole bunch of us.
You just took that out of my mouth, because that story again is on the it's on the front page of Daily Sun, just at the foot of the paper. It says drugs offenses, FG regrets execution of Nigerian in Saudi, and the details of that is on page 6. And you must have heard in our news where the essay that Honorable Abike Dabiri was also lamenting, the unfortunate execution, and of course appealing to Nigerians. Everywhere you are, there are laws. You must comply with the laws of especially when you're not in, it's not in Nigeria where you feel that you can,
impunity, do what you want and get away with it.
Yes.
If it's in fact worse in Indonesia, Malaysia, where you are giving visa, it's indicated there that drug trafficking is death sentence. Death.
And
still,
like you said,
and our people
take cola nut.
Yes.
Is considered, a drug. In Saudi, as she said, it's quite unfortunate. I don't know if Kingsley has...
Well, the lead story for the Daily Independent newspaper is still on this issue. The lead story for Daily Independent says 20 Nigerians on death row in Saudi Arabia, and that's according to the presidency. With the writer says another woman was executed on Monday, that's what we're discussing, and regrets embarrassment caused by Nigerian UAE robbers. Details can be found on page 10. I think the point has already been made.
Yes.
Every country has its laws. If you run afoul of those laws, of course, you face the consequences. The most important thing is let justice be done.
Precisely.
Let justice be done, because part of the unfortunate experience of some persons who were arrested in the past was that the trial processes, they didn't seem to have offered justice. Sometimes trials were conducted in languages that the accused persons didn't understand, or confessions or statements were extracted from them under duress, or in language that they didn't understand, so that there was no interpreter, there was no intervention whatsoever. In such cases, of course, the Nigerian diplomatic muscle, can be kicked in. But if it's a straightforward incident of a drug trafficker who's been arrested and and served justice, I think the most important thing is to continue to warn our people and advise them. There are legitimate ways of making money. As you rightly said, Bayo, you've been to those parts of the world, Malaysia, Indonesia. Malaysia, your passport of the visa indicates that the penalty for drug trafficking is death. So if you see that on your visa, why you don't need any interpreter for that.
Indeed. And just as we are talking about death, at the bottom of the Daily Sun also, the incident that happened in Lagos. Police named Lagos football fans killers. And there's a rider to that story. It says, justice must be served. And that's coming from the presidency. Quite unfortunate incident.
Yes, in fact, the Commissioner of Police for Lagos, Zubair Muazu, has visited the family. And he has promptly identified the two policemen who were involved in that incident. The one is an inspector, the other is a sergeant. Already they are to face orderly room trial. In fact, he paid a condolence visit to the family and enjoyed members of the family. Apart from condoling them, he asked members of the family and a friend of the unfortunate guy who died to come to the orderly room trial to also provide evidence. Another related story to that is that an Akure teacher who sent the SS3 people to go and pluck mango, has also been arrested. The student, you will recall, was asked to go and pluck mango. They had actually gone for tutorial. They were preparing for SSC exams. And the physics teacher sent him to go and pluck mango. Unfortunately, he fell and knocked his head and he died. The physics teacher has been apprehended. She is to be charged to court. The father of the deceased student says that he has left everything to God. At the school is very, very active about this all. They have cut down all mango trees and all trees in the school.
But I'm wondering,
but that's an extreme step to take.
Yeah, for the teacher, right?
Yes.
Well, no, I mean for the pupils or the students who have cut down all the mango trees and other trees on their campus. The trees didn't commit any offense. Let's face it. The trees, of course, they provide shelter. As we were taught. In those days, you know, trees, plants breathe out oxygen, and they take in the carbon dioxide that we breathe out. So why deforest your school, you know, because that incident happened? It hurts, but that didn't appear to be the reasonable step to take in the circumstance. Yes.
But I'm wondering why the teacher in question was arrested if all she did was to, you know, send the boy and the student on an errand.
Well, the death occurred due to the errand he sent the boy, the alleged errand. And in fact, I think the police even declared her wanted, but she reported herself before they could...
Yeah, it could well be to also obtain a statement, you know, from her as to the circumstances surrounding the boy's mission, you know, with regard to plucking mangoes. Obviously, these are things that are fairly... It's unfortunate that this has happened.
Except that's not the first time anyway that such... thing will be happening. Yes, I think I read that it was about the fourth,
the same school?
Third, yes, in the same school, the same, you know, process of sending, you know, a student to go and pluck the mango and all that.
I understand why they were taking vengeance on the mango trees.
And the thing is, of course, just to say, look, you get, you have a harvester. If they are studying our Greek science, there's a harvester. It's called go to hell. That's the name of the harvester. In fact, in some other countries, it's now motorized. You know, they go to hell is like you use it to pluck fruits that are higher up, so you don't need to climb. You just take it, and it's a simple implement that can be designed by the students, that can be fabricated by the students themselves. The other story, you remember, Bayo, we discussed it yesterday, of the killing of the gentleman at the football viewing center at the weekend. You remember we're talking about a finger in discipline of some persons, security agencies who bear arms. There have been various reports, I've seen that in the Punch, you know, of the father of the deceased, alleging that one of the officers, you know, who shot at the deceased, was held, you know, shouting that he must kill somebody today.
Are you serious? And the guy, yes, the guy, yesterday I saw in one of our news, you know, one of the officers, you know, was saying that they were cultists and that they had apprehended some of, you know, them, and then that he just shot, you know, into the air. He didn't know.
They said they were going to apprehend a man who was wearing dreadlocks. Yeah, if you're going to address, you remember we also said it yesterday that the gentleman is an artist. If Raskimono were to be alive and he was wearing dreadlocks, will you go and arrest him?
Well, that's a pointer to many of us who are wearing, people who are wearing dreadlocks.
There's also this political dilemma that is come up now.
Profiling, very bad, negative.
A federal high court in Abuja has nullified the nomination of Senator Ademola Adeleke as governorship candidate for the PDP for September 2018 governorship election. The court upheld the suit of two APC chieftain that he does not possess the requisite secondary school certificate. In fact, the court found that the Adeleke entered secondary school in 1976, but he had no record of his presence in the school up to 1980. Justice Uthman Musa found that the result attached to Form CFOO and submitted to INEC was fake, because it was different from the one presented by the principal of the Ete Muslim High School where he got.
That's very, very interesting.
The other curious thing was that where he deposed to the INEC deposed to an affidavit that he sat for English only in the exams in 1981. However, they said that in that year, there was nothing like secondary school certificate examination. The other certificate he presented was also for NECO, and they said at that year, NECO had not been established. But if you recall that only last week, a court had ruled and nullified the governorship election in Osun State, and Senator Ademola Adeleke had become the governor destined, pending the appeal that is going on in that process. So commentaries have now commenced that now the deputy governor should step in, or the runners-up in the primaries should come in. You recall what happened in Lokoja at the death of Abubakar Audu. So another political jigsaw is
all right. Just very quickly, Claire, before you take the editorial, because we're getting pressed now. Let's understand what is happening in Osun. The case that you just referred to, which was decided yesterday, is a pre-election matter. Now, the decision nullifying the election of the incumbent governor is a post-election matter. And the consequences often can't be the same.
All right, let's quickly take the editorial from the Nigerian Pilot, and it's on reading the Nigeria Police Force of corrupt practices. Now, let me quickly summarize. This is a report by the Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP. And the report says that, and I'm quoting now, a bribe is paid in 54% of interactions with the police, and that there is a 63% probability that an average Nigerian will be asked to pay a bribe each time he or she interacted with the police. Now, somewhere down, it says again, at roadblocks, police officers in their uniform and official rifles no longer disguise while assaulting members of the public. They, in fact, have become solicitors and graduated in their infamy to such extent that they brazenly and unabashedly demand bribes from motorists. Now, what is this paper or this report saying? It says, let the acting IGP demonstrate genuine visionary, committed and patriotic leadership capable of reading the force of corruption, thereby instilling discipline, professionalism, prompt and effective response to distress calls from citizens and on society. By a quick one before we round up.
SERAP based this indication on a survey. Unfortunately, the report did not indicate when the survey was conducted, the population for which it was used. But however, it identified the sources of corruption that it alleges is in the police force: roadblocks, police stations, and election grounds. However, it also adduces some reasons that are responsible for this. There is poor salaries in the police, there is a poor abysmal welfare, and there is poor funding and poor training. However, it's a challenge for the acting Inspector General of Police, because when he assumed office, he specifically said that there has been failure of professionalism, and he has indicated that he will better professionalize the police.
We hope when the police reform bill is accented to, we hope that will help to check some of the issues that SERAP or that report has raised. But I would like to thank you once again. We've really, taken much time, Kingsley. And all right, this is Good Morning Nigeria. Don't go away. We are coming up shortly with, of course, our conversation this morning, managing electoral victory the third time. Stay with us. Okay, we are all set to go. If you're just joining us, you're on to Good Morning Nigeria and the network service. And time now, of course, to set the tone for our discussion. And Abdul Malik Adio has a background, a very short background there. Let's listen to it.
It has been a long-drawn electoral season, from the intrigues of the political campaigns to the actual battlefront at the polls, as well as declaration of winners by the Independent National Electoral Commission. It turns out that for some, victory has not come easy, while for others, it is literally a survival of the onslaught by their opponents to emerge victorious. Against the backdrop of these victors, Good Morning Nigeria for 2 episodes has taken a critical look at managing electoral victory in Nigeria.
Whoever got declared or that won should first think, his thinking mood now should be we, not I. Because this attitude of I, my, me, is not as impactful as when you have the mentality of we.
Former Governor Edo State, Osaime Osumbo, who was on the second part of the program, noted that both the candidate and political parties must be a positive guiding example to the electorate and party supporters on how to channel their emotions in the face of electoral victory or loss.
Periods like this, we expect that the political party leadership must set the tone, lead the way, show leadership in order that the victory can be best managed.
You may need to establish a transition committee. This transition committee will give you an idea of what is currently on the ground. They would also look at your manifesto, your philosophy, and be able to say, okay, this is the direction you should go.
They called for an all-inclusive system of governance, irrespective of political affiliation, creed, or gender, towards enhancing good governance and development across the country.
You want to bring in talents from wherever you can find them. Does not matter who it is. But of course, in doing so, you must also consult widely. You must carry the party leadership along.
As soon as somebody is elected, he becomes a servant of society, a servant to the community. And so his focus at this time should be on service.
They also called for continuous voter education and mobilization to curb voter apathy and inducement as witnessed during the 2019 general elections.
Politicians are becoming more desperate and devising new ways to circumvent free, fair, and credible elections.
If you ask a sizable number of those elected, many of them today, I will not be wrong, more than 70, 80% of those who go into election have never read the manifestos of their parties from cover to cover.
It is indeed different strokes for different folks as regards managing electoral victory in Nigeria. But on today's episode of the program, we shall be taking the perspectives of a 7th governor who got re-elected and political analyst.
All right, it is indeed different, how do they say, different strokes for different folks. That's what Abdul Malik captured it. Let's welcome our guest. First, we're beginning from Jos. Let's welcome His Excellency, re-elected Governor of Plateau State, Simon Lalong. He's joining us from our Jos studio. Your Excellency, thank you for joining us on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much, and good morning, Nigeria.
All right, from Jos, we go to Kaduna studio. Professor Mustapha Dikpa. He's a political affairs analyst and commentator. He joins us. Thank you very much, Professor Dikpa, for joining us.
Good morning, everyone. Kingsley and Claire Delabo.
All right, Kingsley.
All right. Thank you very much, Professor Mustapha Dikpa. Now, here with us in the Abuja studios, we also have 2 guests. First, we'd like to welcome Professor Tony Onyeshi. He's of the Department of Public Administration and Local Government at the University of Nigeria, Nsukka. But he's also an adjunct professor of political science and international relations at the University of Abuja. Professor Onyeshi, pleasure to have you with us on the program this morning.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
Okay. Also here with us in the studios is Dr. Josiah Sabo Kente. He's a former speaker of the Taraba State House of Assembly, and of course, he's currently a senior lecturer at the Department of Mass Communication at the Nasarawa State University in nearby Kefi. Dr. Kente, pleasure to have you with us on the program.
Thank you very much.
Kingsley, probably first speaker to resign his speakership.
Well, I'm not sure of that.
That's what he said.
Well, that's probably, we've had topsy-turvy relationship between speakers and the members of the various houses of assembly, particularly in the past 20 years. That's the Fourth Republic. You also had some instances in the Third Republic, which was stillborn, and Second Republic. So I'm not quite sure whether I will
voluntarily.
I wouldn't know. So let me not say, but fine. But if that is a fact, congratulations. Well, let's begin the conversation by going over to His Excellency, the Governor of Plateau State, of course, who had to wait until virtually after the rescheduled supplementary elections to know his fate. Your Excellency, you sweated somewhat to win your elections. Congratulations. But right now, what is uppermost on your mind on how to manage your victory?
Thank you very much, Kingsley, and good morning, Nigerian. First of all, like you said, I sweated. To me, there was no sweat at all. There was no sweat at all, because looking at the history of my elections, I will tell you that I've been into elections almost the 6th time. First, I was elected twice in the House of Assembly, and I elected again, elected by my peers to be Speaker twice. And after that, went through recall. That the only election in Nigeria, that is a recall in Nigeria. And I came out victorious. So to me, managing the two will also look like there are two kinds of elections. The one to be a legislator, and the second one now as an executive governor of the state. So it has been very usual for me in circumstances like this. So it wasn't anything that would make me sweat at all, because when I came up, even for the recall, I said that I see as a mere exercise in fulfillment of constitutional provisions. And I, as a lawyer, will always abide by it. And I did. We came back, and that also added another flavor to my margin. Instead of 45, the margin went up to about 49, 48 or 40, about 48. Now, let me say, from the perspective of your question, that it is always very, very important. Important in managing victory than even preparing for victory. Because in preparation for victory, that is, I'm talking about campaigns, you would have promised people a lot of things. You would have seen a lot of things in the course of your campaigns. A lot of things also would have been hidden from you, because in most cases people will sometimes tell you the truth, some will not tell you the truth of what they think about you. At the end of the day, it is your duty to go directly, to go deeply, to understand what you are campaigning for, to understand the nature of the people you are going to govern. And at the end of the day, that is when you will know quickly as possible to begin to prepare as to what to do after election. Now, looking at this from our own case, let me put the one for House of Assembly aside, because that was what taught me a lot of experience. That gave me a lot of experience. After winning first election, the second election, the recall exercise, and the overwhelming support during the recall, when it was prepared and instigated by federal government to remove me out of office for refusing to carry out an unconstitutional act. At the end of the day, I think I was vindicated. And that memory kept on lingering in the minds of Plateau people. And so when I came to contest for governor, nobody gave me a chance. Nobody gave me a chance, maybe because of the political party that I was coming from. So looking at that background, I was well prepared. Prepared because so many things had happened before I came in. So many things happened. Plateau has about 53 ethnic groups, 53 ethnic nationalities. And so it's a miniature Nigeria. So when you attempt to govern the people, you should understand that you are not governing indigenes alone. You are governing indigenes and non-indigenes. You are not governing Christians alone. You are governing Christians and non-Christians. And so many other factors that will move you. And also, you must also understand that you are also coming to preside over normal and abnormal people. In this sense, you gather the rest. Now, when you put them together, you understand what to do that will bring them together. At that time, there was crisis in the state, so much of crisis in the state. And so because of that crisis, there were divisions along religious lines, along ethnic lines. And so to be able to govern the people, to be able to give them a sense of confidence, you must make attempt to do reconciliation. You must make attempt to do reconciliation. And also, the issue of Plateau being a civil service state. There was a lot of dissatisfaction by civil servants who are not paid salaries for over 9 months. Over 9 months. Pensioners were all dying. Pensioners were all dying. And at the least, projects were left abandoned. Abandoned projects here and there. And so within this trouble, within what I see as trouble, it was going to be very, very difficult to do the exercise. But to me, it wasn't difficult. Why? First, I put reconciliation and put peace as my cardinal policy trust. And if you get peace, you will all be able to manage the rest. So in my campaign, I told people that yes, peace will be my cardinal policy trust. Let us reconcile. Let us bring people together. And first, I gave the olive branch to those who contested for me. Unfortunately, my closest opponent was not able to live to enjoy the benefit of that government, because we all understand he was my very good friend, my childhood friend. But at the end of the day, shortly after the election, he died. Unfortunately. But the rest of those who contested with me, the first olive branch went to all of them. I said they should come and work with me. And all of them came, most of them came. And most of them were all appointed in government. Most of them. If they were not appointed as key people in government, they were appointed as board members in government, or they also patronized in contracts. So we started with that, and that was now a team for me. So that is exactly the same spirit I'm going to extend in this administration. And what I did after winning the election, and I made my broadcast and I said, in this game, there is no victor, there is no vanquish. Plateau is the one that will benefit from it. So I also said everybody that contested election with me should come on board so that we can work for the people of Plateau State. And I saw reasons in that, because many of those who contested came quickly to congratulate me, except I think one who is already preparing to go to court. But many of the rest who contested the election accepted the extension of the olive branch to all of them, and they agreed that they are coming on board to work out to also help me govern the state. Now, what will I do? I've already started. What I did is, in the first election, we did transition. The transition was to harmonize the position, to understand where the state went wrong, and also to profile some suggestions as to how to move forward. And it was in that transition that recommendations were made that we should concentrate on the issue of peace and reconciliation, and which led us to even setting up the peace building agency, the first of its kind in the state, in the nation. So we set up that peace building, and within that peace building, it was able to gather all the NGOs that were working for peace in Plateau State, and within the concept, they made far-reaching recommendations which we started implementing. That was when we saw the end of crisis at that time for over 2 years between the Birams and the Fulanis. And then the issue of inclusiveness, which were all raised here and there. We tried to bring in our appointments all the tribes. I'm yet to see a tribe in Plateau that is complaining that it is not in government. We ensured that the first appointment, all the 53 ethnic groups that are in Plateau State were all engaged in government. They were all appointed. And that brought in inclusiveness. Areas where people thought they would not get appointments, we gave them appointments. And where they didn't even believe, because they didn't vote, they didn't believe that appointment would be given to them, we gave them choice appointments. And with that, we saw a lot of integration. And peace started moving in the state until one time, shortly, a very long time, I think sometimes about three or 4 months when we had the crisis in Plateau State. So what I'm saying is that these things are still the same thing we're doing. Now, instead of a transition committee, we don't need a transition committee now because we're taking over. We're not taking over from any government. We are moving forward. We are moving what we call in APC the next level. And that next level is what do you do if you replace some of the things you have done before. And that I call it a review committee. I thank God that my president set it up for us, and we are also copying from what we are doing. So what I'm going to do now is to set up a review committee to look at the policies, to look at the projects, at the infrastructures, and to see where we stopped, where we fell in our duties, and how we can move forward. Because this time I'm not talking about re-election. Because in the past they will tell you, no, be careful with this, be careful with that, because you are going to seek for a re-election. I'm not talking about re-election now. And even before, when people talk about legacy, what is now paramount is leaving a legacy. I've already started legacy projects. Even before I knew that I was going to be re-elected, I started legacy projects. Why did I do that? I said, yes, I must not be re-elected before I leave legacies. In addition to some of the projects that I was doing, I already initiated in each of the local government's legacy projects. Local legacy projects, in this sense, will include either a school of international standard, a hospital of international standard, and so on and so forth. They are under construction, all of them now, and very, very visible in Plateau State. They are all very visible in Plateau State. So I did that because I said, assuming I don't have a chance to govern again, these projects will serve as my legacy projects, projects. But however, we are setting up that committee, and that committee will sit down, will prepare, and before May 29, will now decide what to do. And then people will also talk about appointments. Of course, I'm one of those that was very lucky. I will say I was very lucky, because in some of the problems that we have in Nigeria today is that the first thing somebody is elected, you are talking of godfatherism. Whether your godfather will agree to do this, will let you do this, will let you do that. By the grace of God, I was elected without a godfather. I had no godfather. So I had my independence to decide what to do. I had so many friends who came to assist me. I had so many elders, people in Plateau State. But to say that I had a godfather who will decide, who will tell you, no, I didn't. So I had the advantage of deciding, of using my experience to decide what was good for the people of Plateau State. Of course, with collaboration of so many people, and we did that. And that was how we were able to prepare a blueprint. So it was government of people of Plateau State, for the people of Plateau State, by people of Plateau, by the people of Plateau State. And so within that scheme, we roll out the blueprint. And the same blueprint is there. Ours is to replace the blueprint and to see how we've gone, and then to see how to make amends where we also derail.
Governor Lalong, thank you very much for all the details that you have given us. Of course, you mentioned the reconciliation process, and you talked about appointments, and of course, award of contracts are some of the steps you took, of course, to manage your electoral victory. But let me come down here. We pause you for a while. Let's bring in Dr. Josiah Sabo Kente, who's, of course, former Speaker of Taraba State House of Assembly, but it's now into the academics. You listen to the re-elected governor talk about reconciliation. When we talk about managing electoral victories and reconciliation, probably the impression we get is, okay, we're trying to, accommodate or extend some overtures to those who contested, with us and probably didn't win. But managing electoral victory, it's all inclusive of the electorate, the people who, of course, didn't vote for you. So for you, what do you understand by, managing your electoral victories? In what context do you view it?
The first thing is this. When you go into a contest, certainly like election, you should expect somebody to win and someone to lose. And it is expected that if you win, you should be magnanimous enough to also carry along the other contestants too. It's possible that each and every contestant has a kind of a blueprint or a development plan for the state or the country. So it is all very, very important to bring these people together so that these ideas can be put together for the advancement or development of such a society. But, you know, it's very unfortunate that in some instances, people see their victory in the election as a way of trying to kind of revenge certain things that might have taken place during maybe the campaign period. So, but it's very, very important that people should look at the interests of the society first before talking about personal interests or other interests. One other problem that we always have, maybe managing the election victory, is people don't even look at the manifestos of the various political platforms that they kind of use to ascend to certain positions. They sit down, I can assure you that most of those that won the election don't even know the manifestos of their party. From beginning to the end, you see people who just come up, they rule by instinct. They don't have a defined, well-designed program for the development of such a society, either the state or the national level. So the primary objective of government is to provide social amenities, security, and other infrastructure that will make the society better. You understand? But, you know, you cannot do that alone, and you cannot be an island to yourself.
How does a party manifesto cover the interests of those who are not within your party? Of course, those, of course, for whom you should manage when you win the electoral victory.
You know, each political party has a manifesto. And these manifestos, if you look at them critically, they seem to be on the same page. It's just from different directions. They say different things, in part, they say the same thing in different ways. Is that not so? So bringing people together will give you a better idea. If using one person to maybe achieve a particular objective will not work well, I think two heads, they say, is better than one. You bring people together to work for the interests of the society.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Kente. Now, let's bring in Professor Tony Onyeshi. From your perspective, what is the scope and therefore also the consequence of managing electoral victory?
Thank you, Kingsley. My sense of the matter, that should be the position, if we have to move ahead with some health, is that we have to separate two things. We have to separate politics from governance and public administration. At the level of politics, you can talk about partisanship. He's from our party. Then when election is won and lost, first of all, to begin with, the political party, if it wants to continue in good health, must fix itself internally. It must deal with disparate tendencies, conflicts, resolve issues that arose in the process of nomination, intra-party elections and all that. Then at another level is the level of governance and public administration. At that level, you begin to think about the concept of citizenship, because political parties are not voted for by party members alone. That's number one. And then the process, of course, of election is the process of recruiting those who are going to govern and who are going to administer the country, the state, the local government, as the case may be. So let me begin again by, I want to touch on a misnomer, a conceptual misnomer, that it's in our climb, you talk about a victorious party man or a victorious political party being magnanimous in victory. The word magnanimous tends to be offensive. It's only used in our climb. Offensive in the sense that it tends to give the impression that what you do when you deliver service, you do it capricious, you do it, it's whims and caprices, that is, you are at pleasure to do it or not to do it. But you have a constitutional obligation to do it. You've been recruited into the position through the electoral process so as to develop the people. You don't turn back again. There is a threshold. Once the election is concluded, then you move from the threshold, you move from politics to governance and administration. And at that level, you face service delivery, you face economic development, you face security, you face protection of the social formation or the political unit as a whole. That is the issue. So that is why I take exception to the word magnanimous. It's an advice to victorious politicians that, look, this is the boundary between politics and administration. And again, I want to say again that...
Sorry, just before you make this other point, you know, this concept that you have just raised that you say you find offensive, when it is used to say, look, let the victorious party be magnanimous, it is not used in the sense of the governor's perspective. It is used in the sense of politics, that this has been a contest, you are a winner, there are also losers. Magnanimity, therefore, refers to your relationship with the loser, not the process of governance.
Yeah, it is true. At the level of inter-party resolution, inter-party conflicts, yes, I agree with you about magnanimity. But beyond that level, it's no longer going to be at the liberty or the discretion of the victorious
That's
politician.
where the service imperative kicks in.
Yes, when the service imperative kicks in. And that's the level. Then, it's very reassuring to listen to the governor-elect, the current governor-elect of Plateau State, talk about how he's trying to harmonize, interests amongst 53 ethnic groups in Plateau State. Well, at a microscopic level, extrapolate to national level, I want to say that the intensity of electioneering and campaign in 2019 would have been less if there was an attempt to manage this inclusive issue at national level. You see what I'm saying? Manage it in the sense that if some hawks did not take a position that became dominant, that you prorate what comes to groups and sections, according to electoral performance, according to how they voted for the party in power. Are you following what I'm saying? Because during electioneering, you form groups, you form alliances. Because in politics, when groups are adequately stated, everything is stated. Then, when you have won election, what you now do is to reconcile these groups, address the interests of this group, you move above partisan politics. We are worried by the fact that even after the 2019 election, leading political gladiators, particularly within the dominant political parties, are still making statements that allude to the fact that it's going to continue to be a zero-sum game, where those who win everything, and those who lose everything. So it is very reassuring to hear that, particularly when he comes from a dominant party, that this kind of thinking, and even the statements of the president since the announcement of a 2019 election, is going to run an inclusive government. You see what I'm saying? Because it's very important. Because if the issue of citizenship is brought into focus, then you know that once you have won election, your obligation is to the citizen in terms of development. So I think if this kind of tempo, if this kind of thinking becomes dominant, over and above, in contradistinction to the tendency and the position of certain key players in dominant party about if you lose, Nigerians have rejected you. For instance, in the National Assembly, those who have been elected to come to National Assembly were elected by Nigerian citizens. They cannot come to National Assembly to be onlookers simply because their party does not have majority. Part of reconciliation is to consider all those things. And it's a critical aspect of managing electoral victory.
All right, let's bring in Professor Khalifa Dikwa, of course, a professor of political affairs in our Kaduna studio. Now, one common denominator, that has played up in our conversation from the first part, second part, and even now about managing electoral victory is the use of the word inclusiveness, inclusivity. Everybody's talking about it in different ways. Governor Lalong talked about it, even though he said it's reconciliation. But we know that at the sub-national level, that is, attempt has been made to achieve that. But achieving inclusiveness in terms of managing electoral victory, involves varying factors, institutions. So from your perspective, let's begin to look at the institutions now. INEC, for instance, that's a key player. How might INEC, help to foster inclusiveness within the context of managing our electoral victories?
Okay, first of all, by inclusiveness, it doesn't mean equality for those who voted for you and those who actually fought you, or even these things that are wrong. Equality is different from equity. Equity in the sense that you should be able to reward a particular session or even the opposition based on the votes that it gave you. Equality is meant for people who fought with you. It's just like going to a particular war. By the time you win a war, ideally you are supposed to be thinking of rewarding those who have been part of that war. Then the remnants goes to those who did little or nothing. And it has to do with truth. The way His Excellency, the Governor of Plateau, said, is somebody who was expected to win, actually, because he wasn't playing the double that most of the people did in the past. I remember in 1992, when we were appointed just as caretaker chairman we were dispatched from universities and so on. We did a perfect job. We did not go into a confusion and so on. The thing is, politicians themselves are lawyers, and again, we have to now think of the next step in the sense that even within the judiciary system, particularly the bar should be able to now try a measure of derobing certain members of its union, because a particular lawyer will give an interpretation for a particular case. The same case, when it crops up tomorrow or next year and so on, he gives another, the opposite interpretation. You and I, you people know it. I remember having listened to Kingsley Osadolo in the past. Just remember, NTA in the past was not doing the right thing. For today, NTA now is the darling of the Nigerian people, because different views, people who are invited from across the divides and so on to say things as they are. This is the ideal thing to do. And therefore, I believe that equity is the ideal thing. Just remember the situation in which now a typical example of now Southeast and South thinking of given the seat of the Senate president, just to say, for inclusiveness. For inclusiveness does not work in democracy. In democracy, it has to do with numbers. You cannot treat those who voted for you and those who sacrificed their resources, their time, their intellect, their everything throughout your campaign and so on, and give the same scenario, give the same who fought you in the past. Ideally, particularly those who put all their eggs in one basket. And if the Southeast played and put all the eggs in one basket, it shouldn't expect to reap from where it did not sow. And therefore, in politics, that one does not work. And again, remember, they easily forget the past. In past, when the Southwest was completely excluded from governance. And again, I agree with the governor and my colleague there that governance should be separated from politics. Why? In the sense that as soon as election is over, it is about the truth, and that appointments are done quickly. Once you appoint, in the past, the Second Republic in 1979, I was 20 then, the part where the federal government hasn't won the state, liaison officers were dispatched to coordinate the contracts and so on. And again, you see, again in 1979, I remember that those who fought were never forgotten, and that in the past, when 2015, many of those who stuck their neck and so on to vote for President Buhari right from 2003 with him were not happy in a situation in which people fought and won the war, then to be left at the gate, including the vehicle that took Mr. President. I think leaving those who had been there fighting you, who blocked you and so on from winning, and today you win, then you consider them first before those who have been with you, who have been victimized for one reason and so on. It has to do with equity. As soon as you are elected, you appoint your commissioners, your ministers, and so on. And then from their own little allowances, they should be able to fund the party in order to stage conferences and so on. That was not the case in most of the cases. Again, back to 1999, the party allowed itself to be pocketed at the federal level. Then the governors also followed suit. When the party as a mother could not even shout out and not snub every members of its fold, then there is a problem. Party discipline must be there. Hence, we have the concept of whip in the National Assembly. Agreed. National Assembly can, for instance, decide to vote somebody who is perhaps amenable, who is more open, who is more understanding, who is more vast, who is more modest in terms of understanding and so on. But the party has to nominate. And nominate is not enough. The party ought to have gone into lobby, serious lobby, to talk to the members that, look, these are the things. But we, as a party, we have already zoned this particular post to this particular zone, but preferably the party prefers to put this one. But the members there at the National Assembly may decide to go for somebody, particularly when you bash, you bash and you try to persecute somebody who is popular. The tendency is that he gets a lot of sympathy, just the way it happened to one of the senators who had a lot of running game with the police and so on. Eventually, because he was so connected to his own people, he was there when they needed him more.
All right. Professor Khalifa Dikwat, thank you very much for your position. But just before we ask the next question, perhaps we should contextualize the topic that we are discussing. This is the third part. Indeed, the instigation for choosing this topic was a recognition of the nature of our electoral system, which is the winner take all. That's first past the post. Now, Governor Lalong, of course, who is with us in this conversation, says that he didn't quite sweat, to secure his victory, but he knows that his opponents caused, over 500,000 votes. As it turns out, in the first past the post system, those 500,000 votes or more are virtually wasted. And the 49,000 that made a difference for him has now given him all the powers, as it is the case in other parts of the Federation, indeed under our electoral system. You saw what happened in Sokoto, for instance, where the difference between the incumbent who's been re-elected and the challenger hot on his heels, 342 votes. So whatever number the opponent had scored, of course, is wasted. That's the nature of our current electoral system. If it were proportional representation, it would be different. I'm making all of this so that our viewers can understand, why we have taken on this topic. But your concept of inclusiveness is understood. You've introduced the element of equality versus equity, and they use a number of examples to illustrate that. We'll come back to you later on in the course of the conversation. But one of the key points that you have also raised has to do with the point that our guests in the first and second parts also touched on. I would like to ask the governor, who is with us in Jos, to speak to this, because he talked about how he invited other persons, in his first term, and he's proposing to do the same thing in the second term. Our guests in the first two parts had indicated that, look, you have to be large-hearted to be able to do this. Elsewhere, if it's a zero-sum game, look, these are our opponents, they fought us, it was a bitter fight, let them stew in their loss. What does it take for you to co-opt the opposition? And what are the risks in co-opting the opposition? Are you confident that they can work with you? Are you confident that they might not sabotage you? That's one leg. Second leg would be in an environment where you have 53 ethnic groups and they need to pacify and spread the goodies to all the stakeholders. Isn't there the patent risk of overloading the gravy train so that you now have so many appointments and you have very little resources to deliver the public goods?
Well, thank you very much, Kingsley. Let me say that for us, it started during the campaigns. And I told you what we saw on ground. We studied it. I've been in government for a very long time. I was in government for a very long time as the Speaker of the State House of Assembly. Now, when it came to assessing and looking at some of the things that were there on the plateau, I had a history. I had a history of it. And like I said, plateau needed confidence, plateau needed peace, plateau needed reconciliation. You cannot talk about reconciliation when you are talking about supporting or protecting your ethnic group against another, or protecting your religion against another. So what we did in the first place was to ensure that in our campaign, we made sure that all the 53 ethnic groups were involved. For the first time in Plateau State, we had a campaign of door-to-door, not only door-to-door, but we had a campaign of town hall meetings. And within the town hall meetings, we engaged the 53 ethnic groups. That was the first time. We engaged the 53 ethnic groups, not mere campaign or passing, but we had a sitting with them. We will sit down for 2 or 3 hours, we will discuss with them, they will tell us, this is our problem. So at the end of the day, we put all the 53 ethnic groups together. And when we put them, we harmonized them together. And we said, yes, for this particular ethnic group, we know their problem. For these people, we know their problem. For this segment of religion, denomination, we know, we understand their problem. And so when we won the election, what we did was to put it to them to make nominations. That is another difficult part. When you talk about appointments, we said they should nominate people to government. So they made their nominations. The appointments are not the same. They can't be the same. Anyway, like a professor said, they are not the same. Somebody will take a senior special assistant and he is comfortable. Somebody will get special advisor, he is comfortable. Another person will be going for commissioner and he is comfortable. And so we did that dialogue. And when we finished the dialogue, everybody got his own share of appointments. And then he was, they were all comfortable with the appointments. Let me tell you that I exhibited 3 experiments of appointments. I tried 3 experiments in the state. The first appointment I did was to say, okay, people should nominate people from each of the local governments. Nominate 3 appointees for me, people you think are appointable, I will pick one. They did that, I made the first appointment. But they were also, as typical of Nigerians, everybody, people, in some cases, people complain. They said when you gave the opportunity to nominate, we were not part of it. The big ones in our village or the big ones within our local government just sat down and nominated their relations. We started with them. We did the experiment. The second experiment I did was when I dissolved the council. I said, okay, you want to appoint people, now go back to each local government and vote. Vote for people you want me to appoint into government. They voted. And they voted and they brought out the list again to me. I did that appointment again. Of course, there were also pockets of people who complained and said all the elections, some of the elections were manipulated by big politicians. They said they were manipulated, not the genuine people came out. And then the last one that I worked with was, I said, okay, I've done these 2 experiments, let me now be the one to appoint people. And that I blended politicians and technocrats. And so when I came out with the list, of course, in all, you will find complaints. Some of the complaints were that I appointed people who are not politicians, who did not participate in politics. They were not part of the campaigns. So, but within this, we are able to blend the 3 together. And as a governor now, it's only within me. I know what I'm preparing because I've studied the 3, and I've seen the advantages and I've seen the disadvantages. But the most important thing is the dialogue, and also when you are doing appointments. I had a conversation with a fellow governor who said that there is no need for you to go to make Mr. President to consult with states when it is making appointments. And I still stand on that. I disagree with that. I said Mr. President was elected from the state. And so it is the state governors that know those who are appointable. Mr. President has a very wide constituency. So the best, and his link with the federal government is the state governor. For you to tell me that the president will not consult me in appointing, the president may make mistake. He's not God. President is not a saint. So one of the things they said is that when you are doing appointments in the state, do you consult Mr. President? Let me tell you that I had one experience, and Mr. President will bear me witness. When I was doing the last appointments in my state, I went to Mr. President. I said, I'm going to appoint people. I want to find out if you have an interest, anywhere in my state. Mr. President took up his hand like this and said, I don't have any interest in your state, but I bless what you are going to do. He said, I have blessed what you are going to do. So go ahead and carry the exercise. So I went back because that was the complaint. They say, if you are going to do appointment, you consult Mr. President. Now, I consulted him, and he said, I have blessed your appointment. I'm also waiting, when he's doing his appointment, whether he will consult me. Because the last time, there was no consultation, I must say, and some appointments were made. Some of those who were appointed did not even know their route. They couldn't go back home. What is politics? Politics is about people. And if you go and appoint somebody that they don't want, it means you are not properly represented. You are not properly represented in that place. I still stand on that. That I said, yes, the president can go and do an appointment and say, without consultation with the governors. But it was the governors that moved the people to come and vote for him, and vote for him. So if you do the consultation, we had our own, everybody, I will say, yes, we have seen the experience in some states. When some of the appointed people in government at the federal level came back home, they didn't even recognize them to even say they will deliver even their polling units. They didn't. So what are you appointing them for? Because I know that in every appointment, you go for retreat, just like I'm thinking of doing. At the end of the appointments, you must take them to retreat. And in this retreat, there are guidance, there are rules. If you are appointed, even if you are not a politician, you are a technocrat, and you are appointed, there are also guiding rules of politics that they will tell you. You are a technocrat appointed in a political environment. So you must be able to blend the two. You can't say, I was a technocrat, I was appointed, I'm not a politician. Huh? If you are not a politician, but what you are going to do is a lot of politics. It's a lot of politics. How to mix up with the people, how to sell the achievements of the government is politics. So I see that as a very, very essential thing to do. And that is why I left that part of appointments. But appointment is very, very key. It carries people together. And when Kingsley asked me, what did I do to bring them together? I said it was very easy. We started with the 53 ethnic groups. We called for nominations. We did the experiments, yes. We had some complaints here and there, but it worked for us. Within the experiment, people were very happy. Those who elected some of their people were very happy. Those who nominated were very happy. And when I did my own too, and I picked a lot of them, I said they were very happy. But when you come back for a second time, like I did now, I now know whether to blend between appointments or election or personal decision to decide, because it is now governance. And when you invite people, I didn't have any fear about including people from the opposition. Let me give you an example of what happened in my House of Assembly. In the House of Assembly, our party, the ruling party, was disadvantaged because the majority of those who are elected were people from the PDP. And so to produce a speaker was going to be something, was going to be very, very difficult. But when we got to the exercise, at the end of the day, what they said is, the members came to me, they said, look, we know you are a speaker, you are a very long-time speaker and one of the longest-serving speakers in the state. We don't want to get into a place where we have conflict with you. We have the number, but we will not want to produce, because if we produce today, tomorrow, something will happen. But let us sit down and have an understanding. Mr. Governor will give you the speaker. You give us deputy speaker. And that was what we did. When they gave me opportunity to produce speaker from a minority party, I produced the speaker, they produced the deputy and other positions. And within that scope, we started. And before we knew it, many of the members from the House, from the PDP, they come to APC. And so we became majority. So when we went into this election, instead of again having minority, We produce our majority members in the House of Assembly, just like we did at the National. So it is not going to be a difficult problem for us to produce the Speaker. So many of those who came back with us from the other parties ended up even decamping to our party. And also touching on that aspect where I said I didn't have to sweat because, yes, they produce. Because politics is very dynamic. It's very dynamic. The reasons for the election in 2013 are not the same. Because when it comes to this one, you have a lot of reasons people were now bringing. Instead of talking about ethnicity now, what came into Plateau was no longer ethnicity, was no longer issue of even religion. It went beyond religion. It was now denominational fight. And so when you talk about that, yes, you will see instances like this. But what we'll see instances like this. But what we'll see, we're not talking about divisions in the sense of ethnicity. We are not talking of divisions in the sense of religion. But when they brought that, you will also have to tie, in most of the states, especially in the North Central Zone, you must tie the successes of this election with presidential performance, and also some of the things that happen nationally. Example like the crisis that we had, and many of the other things that we had in our various states. That was in our various states. That was in our.
All right, Governor Lalong, thank you. And let me return to the studio here and bring in, of course, Senator Sabo Kente. Yes, you heard the governor talk about the issues that he had to, the magnitude of the problem he had to, shoulder in trying to manage his victory. Now, should we leave managing of electoral victory, the burden of managing electoral victory, to governments at the sub-national, to chief executives like the governor? The conversation we've had so far is that we must begin to build institutions that can promote the kind of equality or equal opportunities to services and resources. Thereby, we take away these kind of issues, from the chief executives. What's your thought?
Well, I heard the governor very well, and his position regarding the appointment, maybe at the state level, taking into consideration the national perspective. To some extent, I understand his position very well, and if we were to go by that, I want to differ with him a little bit. If we were to go by that, in the past experiences we had from 1999 to 2003, governors then would just sit down and appoint their own, I want to say in quote, boys or girls to federal appointments. They nominate them for federal appointments. And at the end of the day, you see the governors becoming so powerful that senators were being nominated by the governors, members of the House of Reps were being nominated by the governors, the ministers were being all appointments were being nominated by the governors. You go to the governor's house or a governor's lodge, there you see the governor sitting on the chair, senators and other appointees and other elected people are all sitting on the carpet to worship them. In as much as I know that it is very important to kind of give them the opportunity to also participate in the nomination of some of these appointees, I want to suggest here that there should be kind of a consultation between the federal the federal and the state governors to see that those that actually labor and work for the party are brought on board.
What I'm saying is to save the chief executives that burden you understand, and creating this lacuna you've talked about, isn't it proper to build institutions that can create a level, as we say, a level playing ground? For ab initio, you have, an inclusiveness. So you don't have to go through all this of, that's what I'm saying. I don't know, Prof.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. I don't know even where to begin. The professor that was talking from Jos, from Kaduna, was talking about that democracy is not about inclusiveness. What else is democracy if it is not inclusiveness? It's government of the people, for the people and by the people, you know, and that is the absolute, that's the definition, Lincolnian definition. But of course, what we practice is representative democracy, consultative and, if you like, deliberative democracy, you know, at the development level, participatory democracy. If somebody said that inclusiveness is not the issue, then that means we are returning the era, we're enacting the era of machine politics, where all you need to do is to be a member of a political party, and the things you need in the country will be done for you. But that's not the issue. The essence of political party formation that began in America is an instrument for aggregating and presenting ideas and principles called ideology to the people. And then you have competing ideologies to the people, and people will choose those who are projecting those ideologies because they know that when they implement those ideologies, that society will be better. And these people are going for service. But in our own climate now, we are talking about politics as if it is a private commercial business. All the things, even the governor, the professor, all of them are talking about is how the rewards will go to politicians, how rewards will go to party men, all this. You mentioned it earlier. Scarcely has any person focused upon the citizens for whose mandate the people are there in position of power and for whose purpose election is taking place in the first place. So that is what we are trying to talk about. Now, I'm talking about institution. We have a weak civil society, so the people don't know their rights. They don't even know what the Constitution says is what they should look up to. They don't know how to seek accountability from the governed. See what I'm saying? We have other weak institutions, which is making politics the most lucrative business. And why should you be surprised that about 91 political parties reared up their heads during the election and about 73 on the ballot? And we are going to have more if care is not taken. Because it has appeared, like one political scientist pointed out, if you are not in politics, if you are not related to those who are in politics, then you are not a citizen. Elections, appointments that are taking place in the country today, it's been happening since 1999. You see, if you go to the National Assembly and you see the crowd of people queuing to go and see legislators, what are they looking for? They have come from far and wide around the country. They are looking for letter to go and look for appointment.
So what kind of changes?
The kind of change we need is that we need institutions, civic institutions that are vibrant in terms of protecting the rights of citizens. I feel what I'm saying? Because if the rights of citizens are adequately protected, including self-help effort by citizens themselves, forming themselves into civil groups that demand their constitutional rights, then people wouldn't be moving into politics like that. That is the way I am saying it. Because if you talk about post-election management of electoral victory, if you do not organize governance and public administration in such a way that you deliver services, at the end of your tenure, if you look at the high profile of electoral casualty in 2019, some of them who were voted out, including governors, were people rejected objectively by their people. And that rejection, as a result of non-performance, was exploited by their fellow politicians. Are you following what I'm saying? On the other side. So they exploit it. They will look at you. You do all the appointment of politicians. But when you don't perform, they will see that you have not performed. So the objective condition of non-performance will be exploited and appropriated by rival politicians.
Incidentally, Professor Onyesha, part of what you're talking about is also what we have had cause to discuss recently on Good Morning Nigeria. And it has to do with the budgetary templates and priority spending of the 3 tiers of government. You know, how to, again, deliver the public goods irrespective of political leanings, irrespective of the votes that have been mined from the particular area. Just before we go on this short break, I would like to ask Dr. Kente a question I asked the governor earlier. In political terms, how easy or challenging is it for a victor to reach out to the opposition, especially after a bitterly fought election?
Well, it's not too, I don't think it's too difficult to reach out to maybe the other side of the divide. after elections are conducted and a winner emerge. It's just a matter of trying to set up the machinery. My professor here talked about institutions. There are institutions where you can use to reach out to some of these people, some of these aggrieved people, or some of these contestants. He mentioned, like the governor of Plateau mentioned, about reaching out to the various ethnic groups to nominate people for appointments. Yeah, that is very good. It's very okay.
Please, let me just jump in here so that you can take it along.
Yeah.
You, who is the victor, the representation of the victor, you are there.
Yeah.
But there are your foot soldiers, your supporters,
certainly,
who will be asking, why do you want to bring Professor Onyeshi to this man? Is he not the one who was issuing all those statements when electioneering was going on? Where were they? You know, they were fighting us. You know, your supporters will be saying, look, this you are going to do is going to hurt us.
Yes, but even the same supporters, you can equally ask them, if you don't want Professor Onyeshi to come, who do we bring from that side? They know people that have soft mind that can also contribute to the development of the state or the nation. These supporters you are talking about, they have links also. You can, through them, reach out, who do you think we can bring on board that can also do this work for us?
But you haven't exhausted our numbers, so why do you want to go outside?
Of course, we want to also make sure that we reduce the tension. Normally, you know, at the end of every election, you know, there are a lot of tension. People, like those that lost election, will be you know, they'll be feeling the pains. How do you now dust down some of these pains? Is if in the process of, you bring some of them in through your supporters. You understand? I could remember in the same thing that the governor of Plateau said he did, and I also plan to do. In 2007, when the late governor of Taraba State, Pharmacist Mbabadan Fulani Sunte, was elected, the mode of appointment he made, you know, made the whole state, at the end of the day, the state became like a one-party state. He was able to, in fact, he bought vehicles for all the political parties. All the political parties were brought into the mainstream of governance. They nominated their candidates for appointment into government offices. They were all appointed. But, you know, like Taraba State, Plateau is talking about 53 ethnic groups. In Taraba, we have 135 ethnic groups. So, it as much that it is a little bit difficult to maybe bring all these groups together, you know, it is not out of place to make sure that the major ones that you know that are very, very instrumental to your victory, that you also think they have something to contribute to the state, you bring them on board.
Okay, let's bring Professor Halifa. Professor Halifa, people feel pain, you know, when they lose elections because, of course, they probably, you know, do not have confidence in the process. So if the cognitive process in the electoral, you know, system is open and transparent, will we have a need to talk about managing our electoral victories?
Again, this is very good. Imagine a situation in which the system is able now to truncate the emperors, that is, governors behaving like emperors after victory, deciding what to do, even like Professor Onyeshi said, imposing candidates for elections and even submitting names of their own family and friends who did not actually take part in the struggle and so on. In situation in which in the past I remember that those who did both the state and then at the federal level, there were governors who were actually pronouncing President Buhari's name in every other paragraph, but at home they were fighting the die-hard supporters of President Buhari at home. And therefore, ideally as a president, for instance, the names are there, may be submitted by the parties. But you also have a situation in which there are people who within the opposition who were rebellious enough to now support you into the, to become governor. And this is a different scenario. And like somebody who fought you tooth and nail, and you elevate him, you consider him prior to those who fought along with you. In the Second Republic, for instance, we had a situation in which the party was put above the level. For instance, the NPN chairman at that time, Chief Adisa Akinloye, because of the discipline in the party, President Shagari was always ready to listen. He never stepped the bounds. And this thing is now deteriorating. Unless we bring back that scenario in which the party can decide to say, hey, we have our supporters somewhere else, and the coordinator or the liaison officer should be able to do it for us. And we had in the First Republic, where we were young, small, and so on, the party who wanted to go to the National Assembly, Imam, for instance, was driven away. The youth leader was driven away from Borno State, and Plateau Benue gave him a seat to go to the National Assembly. That particular bond and impression that gave United, each time we talk about, we think of whatever happens in Plateau and Benue, we feel it because of that particular action by a politician at that time. And therefore, in our preliminaries and so on, the laws, even the laws, look at the situation simply because they are not happy. President Buhari assented to the two bills freeing the assembly and the judiciary. And the media went to sleep. That shows you that they have a way of silencing or a certain aspect of the media. This is something that is big enough that will not allow the governor to behave the way they have been behaving in the past. Therefore, not all governors are disciplined as Governor Lalong. So the thing is, some of them will even bring in companies from outside, friends and so on, insulting everybody, even until 4 years later, doing the wrong thing. And in our own laws, we say 90, in the early 80s and so on. I'm one of the students of big lawyer, Nikki Toby, when we had basic laws that this is not abnormal. It is not abnormal to, first of all, reward those who have been with you, and then woo those who were in the opposition, so that in future you will come together and place national interest or the state interest above the interests of the individuals. And I agree with Governor Lalong that technocrats and politicians should be able to come together. And whatever you do that you can do within 5 minutes, for goodness sake, don't wait for it for months and so on, for horse trading and so on. Because that is why I said it is good for us to consider having just one term of 5 years, for instance, so that, or 4 years, so that instead of now wasting the last year of the term talking about votes and so on, you go and then come back after somebody else might have been the governor. That will give the impression that everybody will start working from day one.
Okay.
All right. Professor Khalifa Dikwa, thank you very much. Gentlemen, we're going on a short break now. When we return, of course, we'll take some tweets and then get the closing thoughts of our guests.
All right, welcome back. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria. Let's quickly take the tweets that have come in. I've got quite a number of them, Dele, Jack Solomon, and the others. But let me take this one from Abdul. And it says, the way some party leaders are going about with pronouncements after winning elections leave much to be desired. We must understand that we are not practicing dictatorship. Engagements, persuasions, and lobbying should be given emphasis rather than orders.
All right, this is coming from Mayaki Moshood. Now, politics should be laid to rest and governance should take the center stage. Let's join hands to build a Nigeria without any party's label. Completion of pending projects and inauguration of new ones for meaningful development should be the priority.
And Festus Akiboyewa tweets, the red line for all election winners in our country must be unity. Winners must take the initiative to appease the losers and their supporters so that our country can move forward.
Now, Law Alpha tweet says, losers of electoral contest should be bold enough to congratulate winners and avoid unnecessary litigation and distraction. All right, so those are the ones that, Claire, we can immediately take. Let's get the closing thoughts of our guests. Let's begin with Professor Tony Onyinche. We're coming to the close of this conversation. There are a number of issues that have been on the table. In your opinion, how can the electoral victors manage their success for the betterment of all stakeholders in their constituency, whether national or subnational?
So thank you very much. To begin with, at national level, I remember as a student of politics, Second Republic bombastic politician, of blessed memory, K.O. Mbadiwe, remarked, and it has become so memorable, and it's a quotable quote, that MPN, when people say MPN is zoning positions to here and there, and I say, why are you going? He said MPN is driven by the principle of zoning to unzone. And then if you interpret that, what it means is that if you give every zone its due share, so I'm saying of positions, of appointments, of development of services, of industries, every zone will have a sense of belonging. And by the time every zone has a sense of belonging, then there will be unity. So in Abuja here at the national level, every zone feels a sense of being represented.
Okay, we'll pause.
That is at that level. Then at the other level is, when you talk about equity and equality, it has to take place at the level, at the political level in terms of appointment, so that you can have amity and concord among politicians. Then also at the level of services, because we are talking about development of the economy, we are talking about the citizens, and we are talking about politicians are also talking about those whom they are serving, which is the citizens.
Okay. Professor Nyishi, thank you. Dr. Kente.
Well, I still want to use this word that Professor Nyishi actually never wanted us to use. I want the winners to be magnanimous enough, yeah, to the other side of course. And then the losers should kind of shield their sword. I know how painful it is to lose an election. They should shield their sword and look at the interests of the interest of the development of the country, vis-a-vis whatever thing they tend to benefit from, whatever situation they find themselves.
All right, Dr. Kente, thank you very much. Let's go very quickly over to His Excellency, the Governor of Plateau in Jos. Well, Your Excellency, we know that if we give you another hour, you will still be on the program. We'd like to thank you for your contribution. But just before you go, and very briefly, now you've been re-elected, fair enough. At the commencement of the program, you did say that you had no godfather. But the reality of our politics is that a number of electoral victors would labor under sometimes the heavy influence of godfathers. How should they manage the relationship with godfathers, especially as it's obvious now that even you as a governor, you have become a godfather?
First, let me also put a word to one of the questions Claire asked, that whether it is necessary to have institutions where we see some of these problems. And that is why you must pick out your priority. Once you get your priority right, you establish institutions that will even outlive your office. For instance, the priority we put in Plateau was about peace and reconciliation. And so if you get peace and reconciliation right, developments will flow. And that was why we set up the Peace Building Agency. Now, the Peace Building Agency is responsible for a wide variety of assignments, including getting those who are oppressed, getting people who are aggrieved, and putting them together and sending recommendations to government. So it's not difficult for us now to get the input of what is done within the various ethnic groups. Talking about godfatherism, like I said, I didn't come with any godfatherism, and I thank God that the godfather at that time were the people of Plateau State. The decision of the people of Plateau State is exactly what I follow and I do. Whether they say I am a godfather, everybody knows, even my appointees know, that once the day I appoint you, I don't expect to put pressure on you as to what to do in my favor. In my favor. That is why when it comes to election, people were doing different things. All I said is that do it according to the desires of your people, And so I don't want to be working under the pressure of a godfather, and I will not want to be always a godfather, to be a godfather. Thank you.
All right, His Excellency Simon Lalong, Executive Governor of Plateau State, we'd like to appreciate you for your time this morning. We also like to appreciate Professor Halifa Dikwa, who is a political affairs analyst and commentator. Prof, thank you very much. Sorry, we've run out of time, so we can't accommodate more comments from you. Both of you, thank you. And let's also appreciate Professor Oyushi, of course, who is here with us, of Department of Public Admin and Local Government, University of Nigeria in Nsukka. Thank you very much for coming. Dr. Josiah Sabokente, former Speaker, Taraba State House of Assembly, I'd like to thank you very much for coming. And that's it on Good Morning Nigeria today, the third part in our series of managing electoral victory. I am Claire Delabu Abdurrazak. Tomorrow is another time for us on Good Morning Nigeria.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I join Clay in thanking you for being with us. Well, have a nice day.